Am I the a-hole for not letting my ex move in, which could cost her custody? Alternate account, fake names too. So when I-35 male was 22, I got married to Kristen. We had our son, Sky 11 male, about a year into our marriage. Things were pretty going well, I felt like. I was working, Kristen was staying home with Sky. Things were tight, but I was able to buy us a home and provide a decent life. I was just getting started in IT, so the money was coming. Just had to be patient. Well, I come home one day and half the stuff is gone. So is Sky and Kristen. And a note on the counter. Kristen said that she wasn't happy with our lifestyle. That she wanted something that wasn't mediocre and wanted to live a good life. She had been seeing someone else and was moving in with him, and that I needed to get a lawyer. We go through a nasty divorce and get split custody. So I remarried a few years later to my current wife, Alana. She's amazing and the most supportive person ever. We have one daughter together. I started my own IT consulting business about 5 years ago and it's taken off, giving me, my wife, Sky, and Gwen a nice life. My ex has had a string of boyfriends and hasn't remarried. We don't talk at all besides details about Sky. So I got a call a week ago from Kristen. She was asking for a place to stay for a little bit. Her boyfriend was kicking her out, and she didn't have anywhere else to go. She wasn't going to be able to afford a safe place for her and Sky. She asked if she could live in our guest house until she could find a place to live. I basically told her no, that she didn't deserve my charity after walking out on me a decade ago, that she as a mother needs to clean her crap up and provide for him, and that if she wasn't going to be able to afford a safe place to live, then I want to revisit the custody agreement, because I don't want Sky to move into some sketchy apartment or some sketchy guy. But I told her I'd ask my wife and get back to her. My wife hates Kristen, but said she doesn't want Sky resenting us if something happens to his mom. But she really doesn't want my ex living here either and would prefer to revisit the custody agreement in order to give Sky some more stability. So we thought this is our chance to push for solo custody. My mom wants me to consider the message this sends to our son. My dad told me to remember the note on my counter 10 years ago and do think about what is best for my son in the long run. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Because some people have asked, yes, Sky loves his mom. She isn't a bad mom to him. We haven't asked his opinion because we are sure he would want her to move in. Edit. We don't want a temporary agreement because that would lead to more instability for Sky. This would be a final decision. Now for the top comments. This is messy, but I'm going with not stay hall for not allowing your wife to stay with you. She made her bed, and now she has to lie in it. The thing you haven't mentioned is how your son feels about all of this. It's time to have a very frank conversation with him and get his feelings on this matter. Your son should be priority number 1. I agree that the son should be priority number 1, but that doesn't mean ex-wife moving in, because certainly that's what Sky would want. Making your child your first priority doesn't automatically mean they get to make decisions that affect the entire family. His mom put herself in this situation. She needs to figure it out without making it OP's responsibility. While moving in would allow OP's ex to keep custody, it would make OP's family life a living hell, which in the end would be detrimental to Sky as well. People divorce precisely so their kids can have a peaceful environment and not be around two parents that can't stand each other. Changed from not the a-hole to a massive you're the a-hole based on OP's edits and responses. You don't have to completely kick Kristen to the curb by pushing for solo custody. You can help her in another way. The thing here is to do what's best for your son in the long run, and that for his mother to be secure. My suggestion is you offer to take your son full-time for maybe 6 months or so. This will give Kristen time to get a job and accommodations. Allow her to take him for the day on weekends, etc. Once she has life sorted out, custody goes back to how it is now. You're the a-hole. Going for sole custody or having your ex-wife move in are not your only options, and you know it. Not the a-hole for not wanting her to move in, but that doesn't mean that you are not being an a-hole. We go through a nasty divorce and get split custody. It was decided that it was in Sky's best interest to have both parents in his life, and until he is old enough to express a preference, that is what should happen where possible. Having Sky live with you full-time while his mother sorts herself out is a very different thing than going for sole custody for the rest of his childhood. You could tell your ex that you won't go for sole custody, but she needs to sign paperwork. That Sky will stay with you so that his situation is stable while she sorts herself out. You can both preferably joint explain to Sky that Mummy is having a difficult time at the moment, so he will live with you full-time until things are better for Mummy, and then you will go back to the previous arrangement. If he asks why Mummy can't come and live with you, which at 11 he probably won't, you explain that Mummy and Daddy respect each other, but don't get along well, so that is only going to make everyone miserable. The message that sends to your son is that people are responsible for their own actions and consequences of them, but we don't take advantage of other people's misfortune. Edit. OP has added this reply showing his motivations are not about his child's best interest, but what appears to be revenge. He replied just now, "No, my ex-wife treats him well. But I'd sooner give money to a slot machine than Kristen. She doesn't get child support, and I wouldn't even pay for a hotel room for her." Next story. Am I the a-hole for being openly hostile towards my sister and telling on her, thus potentially making her husband lose custody of his children? I'm not gonna be shy about this. My sister sucks. She is a horrible, self-centered person who thinks she's the main character. She is not only a horrible person, she is a step monster. She married this guy who is a freaking pushover 3 years ago. He has 2 children, 10 and 6. And my sister constantly complains about them, saying things like the 6-year-old is gross because he sips too loud or has stained clothing. For the love of God, he is 6. That's what a child is supposed to do. And she is so mean to the 10-year-old girl. She acts straight out jealous of her. I've caught her taunting her that Daddy loves my sister more than her. She is horrible. I've straight up called her out after trying to talk to her a million times. At Christmas, she was saying that it'd be nice to have the kids there. And I said, "Why? You hate them." This was when everything was almost over, and she had been bragging to her friends that her husband had spent more on her than on his daughter. A fight ensued. My parents reprimanded me, but my cousins took my side and called her out, noting every moment that they had witnessed her being horrible. Her husband obviously took her side and said that she was a wonderful stepmother, and the kids love her. To which I said that was a lie, as I had consoled them countless times after they were taunted by my sister. They left, and we haven't talked since. One day I was running errands and run into my step-nephews who were with their mother. I'd never met her, but honestly, she is wonderful. We decided to have some coffee. While the kids were playing, she asked me how her children behaved, etc. I said they were wonderful, and then I just spilled the beans on my sister. How awful she was, what I've heard her say to the kids, and the inaction of her ex-husband. By the end, she was horrified. She said the kids didn't like her, but she always chucked it up to my sister being the new woman in their father's life. She said the kids never really said anything even when she asked. I then told her I was very concerned for the children, as my sister had straight up told the 10-year-old that it would be better if she disappeared from her father's life. Their mother saw red and asked me if I'd be willing to testify. She said that this was unacceptable and she would be taking their father to court again. I said I would recount the events that I witnessed and could ask my cousins who witnessed a lot too. She was very grateful. I asked my cousins who were all willing to recount the events, but word got around to my parents, and by extension my sister. And they have been calling me the biggest a-hole on the planet who would betray family on a whim. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Those kids are clearly being mistreated by your sister, and clearly their well-being is being neglected by their father. I'm normally not a fan of people injecting themselves into someone else's relationship, but you're looking out for these children and there's nothing at all wrong with that. To be honest, I don't care about the relationship of her and her ketchup-smelling husband. I feel really, really bad for the kids. Exactly. This is all about the kids, and I will never knock someone who is standing up for kids. In my opinion, there's nothing lower than a person who mistreats children or animals. Not stay home. How awful for those poor children. You are absolutely doing the right thing in protecting them from your sister. You should be prepared for your family to take her side though. In my opinion, if your family is willing to side with her, good riddance. Hopefully, you can still have a relationship with the kids and their mother though. Good job. Only my parents. The rest of my family is as fed up with my sister as I am. She is not very popular these days. You're not a-hole. I don't like when people throw around the word narcissist around here, but your sister sounds like one. To be able to criticize children and be jealous of their relationship with their father? To tell them he loves her more than them? My mother is a narcissist. One of my earliest memories is her telling my sister and me, after our father had tucked us in and told us he loved us more than anything, that he didn't mean more than her, that he would always love her more. I'll never forget that confusing moment in my young life. That woman did damage to all of her children, that she'll never take responsibility for, and that we'll be healing from for the rest of our lives. You offer these kids mother assistance to stop that from happening to her babies any longer. You did a hard thing. You will probably catch crap from family, but I think you did the right thing. You know what's funny? She once went to a psychologist who diagnosed her with NPD. She didn't like the diagnosis, and went to a behavioral therapist who didn't diagnose her at all. Next story is titled, Am I the a-hole for making my cousin a laughingstock with the pressing of a button? So I have a cousin who's overly entitled. I'm talking the self-proclaimed gem of the family entitled. Never been told no for as long as I've known her. Anyhow, she knew I recently came into some money and figured she deserved a share. She calls my cell and basically demands a share. I laugh and tell her not a chance. I thought that would be the end of it, but no. She goes off on me big time, saying the most ridiculous entitled crap I've personally witnessed. That she'll get her parents to force me to give her money, how she'll get me disowned from our family, etc. But what she didn't know, I have an app on my phone which records all calls. I had some legal issue in the past regarding family, so I decided it's best to always have a recording of calls. The ones that are innocent I always delete. So I send a recording to a tech-savvy friend and ask him to install a small speaker onto a picture frame which is connected to a button. I get a picture of my cousin and place it in the frame. I put it up onto my apartment wall with a button beside it. So now anytime someone wants a laugh, they can just push the button and listen to her 4-5-second over-entitled outburst. It's kind of become the funniest thing, and every time people come over, they just have to push the button just to get a laugh. Cousin found out about it and basically berated me for making her the laughingstock of the family. Am I the a-hole? Now for the comments. Not the a-hole. That's genius. It belongs in one of the revenge subs. The cousin had it coming. Hope his retaliation could not have been better. Hilarious. Not the a-hole. I think this falls under the play stupid games win stupid prizes category. She at least brought the joy of laughter when guests pressed the button. I wouldn't mind getting a stupid prize if it's at the cousin's expense. Butch didn't know I have an app on my phone which records all calls. I had some legal issue in the past regarding family, so I decided it's best to always have a recording of calls. Not stay hole, but you should be really careful about this, because in 11 states it's illegal, and it would be horrible to get arrested for outing your cousin as a greedy a-hole. Last story. Am I the a-hole for refusing to let my girlfriend take my son after his mom begged me to? My ex-wife and I got divorced 3 years ago. One of the reasons is that she was, still is, married to her job and not me. We have 50-50 custody of our 4-year-old son. I met my current girlfriend almost 2 years ago and we're planning on getting engaged on the end of 2022. My girlfriend adores my son and likes to spend time with him. She'd even let my ex drop my son off at our place because of work. She's a nurse. This occurred several times, and although my girlfriend never complained, I just couldn't help feel that my ex was taking advantage of my girlfriend's good nature and basically messing up our custody agreement. The other day, my girlfriend and I were home. My ex-wife called her asking if she could drop my son off for a few hours. My ex-wife was on speaker when she was speaking to my girlfriend on the phone, so I heard from a distance. I took the phone right before my girlfriend could say yes, and firmly told my ex-wife no, and to stop taking advantage of my girlfriend. She kept on about how she needed to cover this emergency shift right then, and couldn't find a replacement on such short notice. I said it wasn't mine and my girlfriend's fault, and that she should be ashamed of herself for using my girlfriend like that. My girlfriend kept staring as my ex said that she wasn't using her since she was my son's future stepmom. I said, well, that doesn't make her your personal babysitter for Pete's sake. But she said it's between her and my girlfriend. My girlfriend told me to let my ex-wife bring my son over, But if I let it happen again, this will set a precedent for my ex-wife to pull similar stunts in the future. My ex-wife begged, but I told her to get a babysitter. She said something about not finding one, but I hung up and handed the phone back to my girlfriend. My girlfriend looked upset with me and said that none of what I did was called for, that I should have let my ex-wife bring my son over. I asked if she was fine with being used as a babysitter, and she said that spending time with my son is not like babysitting. I let her know that always saying yes and not setting boundaries won't do her any good. She got more upset and said that I blew this out of proportion and ruined some great time with my son. She went upstairs and acted hurt by how I handled the situation, though I thought that I was helping her stand up for herself and set boundaries with those who try to take advantage of her. Am I the a-hole? I think there's something wrong. You don't seem to have given any thought to your child's well-being. Won't he be happier with you and girlfriend instead of with a sitter? You don't appear interested in seeing your son. Your ex is a medical professional, and we're in the midst of a pandemic. You seem more interested in exerting control over your ex, girlfriend, and son than actually building relationships. You're the a-hole. What less than full-time parent turns down time with their kid? I assume girlfriend is available, not working at this time, given she was going to say yes. Plus, it's not babysitting, it's step-parenting, even when it's not your time. Most of the time you hear people rightfully upset that their significant other is being a bad step-parent and not forming a bond. I hope he hit the jackpot and has a very nice girlfriend with a kind mothering nature, and he's complaining. You're the a-hole. I'm not sure your ex is married to her job. She's a nurse during a pandemic. And what kind of father refuses to see more of his child? And if you think your ex is married to her job, why did you agree to 50-50 custody? Why didn't you go for full custody and visitations for your ex? You made decisions for your girlfriend that just assumed she didn't know how to stand up for herself. You were rude to your ex and to your girlfriend in just one conversation. I get the feeling that you're going to be single for a long time. Him putting to work in inverted commas is just extra haunted. Does he think a nurse is lying about having a short notice emergency shift during a pandemic where health workers are stretched past all reasonable limits? This is the second update of the story about the young girl who was excluded and uninvited from her parents' wedding. Link in the description for the first part of this saga. Now for the update. Sorry for not having re-updated sooner or commented. As you can imagine if you've seen my last posts, it's been a busy week to say the least. There's been a lot of people messaging me and commenting on the post, and I haven't had a time to answer to one until today, and I'm sorry for that. You all have been so helpful and caring for me and my story, and it's been truly eye-opening and terrifying to see how many people have gone through similar stories of neglect and abuse. And I just want to thank you all for taking time out of your day to send some kind words to this internet stranger. This update will be long, so sorry for that. I'm just going to continue where I left off. So my grandma called me to tell me she was coming here to see me and help me out. I was very stressed about it, because my grandma has a very hard time traveling. So for her to take this trip meant that she would be under enormous stress, and I felt responsible for her since I was the one that called her. She arrived early Monday morning with my uncle and I went to get her at the airport. Not gonna lie, it was a very intense and emotional moment, and as soon as I saw her, I ran to her arms and broke down sobbing. I don't even know if I was able to tell her anything at that moment because of how hard I was crying, and I had so many things to say. Thank you for coming, for being so good to me, for having my back. I'm sorry I have made you take this trip. I feel awful at home. I don't know if my parents love me, but I know you do. Am I an affair child? I truly was hit with all of this, plus the guilt and the anxiety all at once when I saw her. But she held me tight in her arms, telling me everything's going to be okay. My uncle hugged us as well. I don't know how long we stayed like this, but it must have been a while until my uncle told me we should get going. We grabbed a cab and went to their hotel. My grandma had teary eyes and I could feel her breathing heavily, which scared me, but she kept hugging me and smiling all the way. She had reserved a double room so I could stay with her for these days, and once they were settled in and I was more calm, we sat down and I poured everything out for them. The years of neglect and the emotional abuse, how I was feeling miserable after the trip but also for years now, how my parents have been trying to make me feel guilty for all of this that has happened.
how I was scared about my future, but my number one priority at the moment now was to move out of that house, even at the expense of my schoolwork. How I have made arrangements to move in with my friend and I was looking for a job. I told them about this post and how some people thought I might be an affair child and that I was beginning to question that as well. It was a lot, and I could tell they were both really affected by what I was saying, but they kept comforting me and making me feel safe to open up to them. After I unloaded all my concerns with them, my grandma reassured me that I had nothing to worry about anymore and that she would be here for me always. First of all, she reassured me that I was not an affair child and that both my parents were thrilled when my mother got pregnant with me, and that she knew the ultimate deal breaker for my mom was cheating, and she believed it was the same for my father. Apparently, the favoritism began showing when I was around 3 to 4 years old, when my parents were constantly complaining about having a young kid in the house. And they were bothered because they could take my older siblings to their stuff but not me, and I was also very shy and a bit of a crybaby, which they had no patience with, and made me very different from my siblings. She told me that she knew that my parents had saved more than enough for my college. They're really well off, so that had never been a concern for me until now, thinking they might pull the funds away from me for my education, but that if they tried to not pay for my schooling, she would take care of it, and that she just wouldn't let me drop out because of money concerns. She also told me she would help me with rent and an allowance to move out. She was very generous, and I thanked her for it all, but I also told her that this experience had been eye-opening, in the sense that I never realized how privileged I had been economically all my life. For all of their faults, my parents have pampered me money-wise all my life. I went to private school. I have a rather large monthly allowance. I've had a card for years now, and they have never objected to any of my expenses. Seeing the stories here, I realized how good I've had it so far, and how being dependent on them all my life made me so exposed to losing everything. I want to be independent now, not just from my parents but from everyone. I feel like I need to learn to stand up on my own. Writing this and having just read all the stories of people in truly awful situations makes me feel like I've been a spoiled brat all my life, to be honest. She insisted on me accepting the help until I don't need it anymore, and I accepted that. But I'll still will look for a job and try to make it out on my own. We relaxed for a while in the hotel because we were all exhausted from the morning, but in the afternoon, we grabbed a cab and went to my house. My parents were extremely surprised to see my grandma and uncle with me when I entered the door. But before they could say anything, my grandma told me to go pack all my essentials while they talked to them. I rushed upstairs and I could hear my grandma and uncle berating my parents for all that they had put me through. At first, I also heard my parents trying to defend themselves, but eventually they quieted down. When I came downstairs with 2 suitcases and my backpack full to the brim with everything important that I had in my room, they were all in the living room. My father was beet red and my mother was sobbing like a child. And when she saw me, she extended her arms in my direction saying she was sorry, but I just said, "Save it," with the coldest tone I could muster. My dad said that I didn't have to be a jerk, to which both my uncle and grandma told him to shut up. I left the house at that moment and waited for the cab outside. In the hotel, my grandma reassured me that I wouldn't have to go back to them, and that they told her my college tuition was never in question for them, and that they had planned to throw me an extravagant birthday party to make up for the wedding mess, and were going to be giving me a car as an apology for everything. But my grandma was having none of that BS, because it was pretty obvious to her that they were only trying to save face, and they were coming up with these things on the fly, and that a party and a car would not make up for all that they have put me through. Apparently, the moment that broke my mother was when she told her that I had even questioned my paternity, and she started crying then. My grandma told her that what else could they expect when they had excluded me repeatedly from all family events since I was a child. She told me that she would make sure they made the payments to my school, unless I preferred to completely cut ties with them and have her pay until I can pay myself, and I asked her to do that. I felt bad because I feel like it's not her responsibility. But I truly don't want anything else from my parents anymore. And although my grandma is pretty well off herself, she's not as wealthy as my parents. But she reassured me that everything is alright, and that everything going to me would be taken away from my mom's inheritance. So the next day, we went with my friend, her parents, and grandma to the studio where we were planning to move, and immediately upon arriving, my grandma said, "Absolutely not." I knew from the pictures that the studio was very, very small and dirty, but we saw water damage and mold in the bathroom and kitchenette, and there was also rust in the little old appliances. I knew all of this beforehand, but I figured I could live with that, at least for a while. But the thing that the adults pointed out that actually made me and my friend change our minds was the fact that the studio was street level in a bad neighborhood, in a building that didn't seem particularly safe, and had bullet holes on the walls, which I didn't even know what those were until my friend's dad pointed it out. So Grandma and my friend's parents said they would look for an apartment for us in a better location and they'd help cover the costs. Both my friend and I want to be independent, but we realize that with our most likely minimum wage jobs in such a high demand area, we won't be able to find anything better on our own. So the plan is, we're going to look for a 2-bedroom apartment, and me and my friend are going to pay what we had previously planned for the studio, and our parents and my grandma will cover the difference. I know it's still quite spoiled of me to expect that help from my grandma, but after seeing the studio in person, I truly wouldn't have felt safe there. My friend's parents, who were somewhat aware of what I was going through, told me that I could move in with them until we find a nice apartment, to which I'm extremely grateful since Grandma's going back in a couple of days and I've been staying in the hotel with her ever since. Apparently my friend, her parents and my grandma spoke about this before coming to me to make sure I had some safe place to stay until we move into the apartment, which is still to be found. I teared up a little as I thanked them, seeing how people were rallying behind me to offer help. Since then, I've been moving some of the stuff I had left at my parents' and setting my space in my friends'. My mom keeps crying and apologizing every time I go back, and even my father has said sorry, but I remain distant and cold towards them. My sister called and said that our mother was a mess, and that I was a prick for what I had done, but before she could say anything else, I hanged up the phone and blocked her. I was going to block my brother as well when I saw that he had sent me a very long message apologizing again and again for all that he has done to me, and for not realizing our parents were treating me so poorly. He says he's been doing a lot of self-reflection on the days since Grandma called and realized that he had been in the wrong for assuming that I wasn't on the trip because I wouldn't want to go, and for just allowing my parents to exclude me for all those years. I sent a brief reply thanking him for his words, but telling him I need space and I was not ready to accept his apology. I feel like he might be genuine because he has never been nasty to me the way my sister has, just aloof towards me, but I also feel like I need to keep him away for the moment. Also, keeping a bridge up with my family feels like the right thing to do right now that everything is so fresh. Maybe in the future he will show me he's just as nasty as everyone else and I block him. But as long as he respects my boundaries, I feel better not cutting him off completely. I've also made an appointment with a therapist who specializes in neglected teens, and I have my first preliminary visit next week, again funded by my grandma, which makes me feel ever more eager to find a job ASAP to take the burden off of her, even if she tells me time and time again she is happy to do all of this for me. That's where things stand right now. I don't know if I'll update again, maybe when I start classes or move to the apartment. But right now, I'm just trying to enjoy some time with my grandma and my uncle and learn to grow and get rid of these feelings of guilt and depression that have been plaguing me for so long. I want to thank once again all of this community for being so nice and helpful to me, and all of you who have messaged me with your own personal stories of getting kicked out or having to learn how to make it on your own at a too early age. You've helped me feel a lot less alone and made me realize that things can get better if I work hard for it. I feel kind of spoiled for having such an amazing support system on my grandma, uncles, and my friend, but you all guys are right. Reaching out has been the absolute best decision I could have taken. And opening up about my feelings to those who love me and to all of you internet friends has absolutely saved me. So thank you. Really, I'm more grateful than words can ever tell. Now for some comments. This tale so far has been one where all I can say is, go grandma! Wish I had her on my side. Mine crucified me. I really hope the next update is one of reconciliation and family coming together, as I am so burnt out with the nastiness of things like this. Wishing you only the best, Opie. I'm curious, when you've gone back to collect things, what exactly have your parents been saying? You mentioned they were apologizing, but is it more along the lines of, I'm sorry, forgive me? Or are they specifically saying, I'm sorry for XYZ? I'm just trying to figure out if they're apologizing because they were called out by your grandma or if they genuinely recognize their own mistreatment. It may not matter right now, but understanding this could be important if there is any hope of salvaging the relationship in the future. My mother has been crying every time I've gone there and just saying I'm sorry over and over again. But I haven't had a conversation with her, so she hasn't mentioned specifics. But I also haven't given her a chance. My father has been mostly silent, staring at me whenever I come and go, but when he apologized, it was more along the lines of, I'm sorry for everything than bringing any wrongdoing for his part in anything. I don't know if they are shocked right now by everything that's happening and haven't had time to process. I myself feel overwhelmed. Or if they don't think they've done anything wrong and are just acting for grandma. I don't know myself, so I can't really answer. Last story. Am I the a-hole for kicking my parents out and saying this is why I was so messed up as a kid? I had my parents in their 60s over for dinner this weekend, and after, my daughter 10 asked if she could play us a song she had been practicing on her keyboard. She gets lessons. It wasn't perfect. A few missed notes, a couple pauses, but she did really well. She looked up at the end, massive smile, and I started clapping. And my parents started freaking laughing. Not just a little chuckle, a massive freaking belly laugh. Them both. My mom asked if it was her first time playing it, and my dad said it had to have been. It all could have played that better. It was like my daughter was shrinking on the spot, and she looked down and said, no, I've had 2 lessons, but doing it with 2 hands is hard. And they just laughed even freaking harder. I just stood up, took their cups, and said leave. Now, my mom tried to say about how they hadn't finished their drinks, they wanted to hear another song, etc. And I just said, get your stuff and get the heck out of my house right now. My dad started doing this huffing thing he does when someone dares to speak up to him. And my mom said that there was no need to be like this, that I can't protect her all the time, and she's preparing my daughter for the real world. I said, it's not teaching the real world, they're just nasty little bullies picking on children. And crap like this was why I was so messed up as a kid. Now leave. They got their stuff and left. I sat with my daughter and explained how proud of her I was and how well she was doing. To ignore them, they were just being cruel because they don't know any other way to be, and asked if she could please play it again, which she did. On the Sunday, I messaged and said that until they can behave like decent human beings, that we're taking a break away from them. My dad replied that it was my choice, but he didn't realize he raised me to be so precious. Now, my lovely brown-nosing golden child of a sister is getting involved. She phoned me today with my parents' versions of events, telling me I was a nasty piece of work and should never speak to my parents that way. That I'm wrapping my child in cotton wool and blah blah blah. I just told her to go F herself and hung up. I'm not asking if I am in the wrong for standing up for my daughter. I'll always do that. But I did go pretty 0 to 100. I kicked them out straight away. I swore at them and in front of my daughter. I did raise my voice at the end when I said leave. I was and still am angry. I don't think I'd even accept an apology from them at this point. This behavior isn't new, it's decades old. But this is the first time it affected my daughter. Did I go too far? React too much? Should I have tried to be calmer? Talk it out? I don't know. Am I the a-hole? Edit. Lots of people think I'm a mom. Nope. Single dad. Not a-hole. Your daughter is never going to forget you standing up for her. Not a-hole. Absolutely correct. She'll see you as an ally in life now. She'll also realize that it's okay to not accept people being awful to you. 2 very enthusiastic thumbs up for your parenting. Yes, OP is not the a-hole. You stood up for your daughter and protected her from cruel, unnecessary comments. Your reaction was wrong, but it's understandable given your parents' long history of hurtful behavior. You're breaking the cycle and prioritizing your daughter's well-being. There's no need to tolerate that kind of treatment, especially when it impacts your child. Not the a-hole. You are correct. They are just nasty little bullies picking on children. What normal human would belittle a child's attempt to perform for them? I know 3 people who never need to darken your door again. It was how they always were. Anything I did while growing up was picked at or laughed at. I couldn't let my daughter feel how I did. The world is only as cruel as the people you're with. You're making the cruelty they're supposedly preparing her for. I'm really happy for you that you recognized what was happening and stood up for your daughter. Am I the a-hole for marrying a man who proposed to me while I was on the toilet? Original post. It's not as bad as it sounds. My friends are just obsessed with that part, I think. My 32 female fiancé Peter, 30 male, had arranged a candlelight dinner in a hotel room. There were flowers, rose petals, and music. There were my favorite dinner and my favorite dessert. Peter was in a tuxedo. I was wearing a dress. That evening was so amazing. While I was eating, my IBS started acting up. I ran to the bathroom. It was mortifying, but at least I was comfortable enough with Peter to allow him to come in. I was apologizing for ruining our evening while I was on the toilet, and he said it's okay. I felt like he wanted to ask me to marry him the whole evening. I told him I love him, and he said I love you too. I told him I'm sure you'll take care of me in sickness and in health. That comment made Peter smile, and he got down on one knee. I didn't care that this was the situation. I was so happy I say yes. I felt like he wouldn't have asked that evening if I didn't say the in sickness and in health comment. I told my best friend Kate, 33 female, and another friend Bailey, 33 female. I told them the truth. Kate said it's weird, creepy, and an a-hole move on his part. I explained that he likely would have put it off if I didn't mean the health comment. Kate said I was desperate and that I should have some respect for myself. Bailey said if I thought Peter would ask another time, then I should have let him ask another time. Before talking to them, I thought I have the sweetest proposal story. Now I feel like an a-hole caused my amazing fiancé to have a terrible story. Am I the a-hole? Now for the top comments before reading the updates. This is the cutest story. Your friends are actually just jealous because they don't have someone who loves them and will put up with their shit. He is an absolute keeper OP. Congratulations on your engagement. Not the a-hole. The cutest story? Wow. I don't know what to say. Thank you so much. I think it is funny and cute with some romance thrown in. You know, without a doubt, this man loves you and everything about you. Congratulations. Not the a-hole. As long as you and him are happy, who cares about anyone else? A lot of women have very rigid ideas about what's romantic. Don't listen to them. I was once told by a female coworker that it was terrible my boyfriend had gotten me a car battery for Christmas. It was what I'd asked for, since I hate dealing with car stuff. He even installed it for me. After I explained this, she told me I was wrong to have wanted this. We never talked much after that. Your story sounds very sweet to me. And your fiancé sounds like the kind of guy who'll stick with you when things are shitty. Sorry, couldn't resist. Mine stuck with me through cancer, by the way. That's way more important than a bunch of lazy hearts and flowers crap. Your boyfriend listened to you, got you what you wanted, and knew it would overall be a good present. That's what most people want in their partner. It was a lovely, thoughtful gift. Now for the first update. The proposal happened on Saturday, and I had been holding off telling my parents and Peter's parents. Both sets of parents live in a different state. Tonight, we told my parents first via video chat. My parents are 58 male and 58 female. My mom is a massive fan of romance, and I knew she would ask about the proposal. Peter and I told my parents the whole proposal story. My mom was over the moon. She said proposing like that is better than any idea she had. My dad said it just proves the love Peter has for me. My mom asked if she can tell others, and I said sure. I had asked my mom to be my maid of honor. After getting engaged, my pick for maid of honor was either going to be Kate or my mom. I didn't pick my mom to spite Kate. I'm not punishing Kate. Kate's initial reaction to the proposal story would just make her being the maid of honor awkward. Plus, my mom is so happy with our union, and she would love to plan a wedding. Then, we told Peter's parents via video chat, Chuck, 55 male, and Linda, 59 female. His parents really appreciated a comedy. Chuck thanked us for giving them the gift of telling that amazing story, if we're comfortable with that. I told him we're confused. Linda said she's so happy for us. Peter told his father that he wants him to be the best man. Lastly, we told Peter's sister, Juliana, 27 female, via video chat, as she lives in another state. She had her father's sense of humor. I hope Kate and Bailey will be bridesmaids. Yes, Kate and Bailey are single. I've been best friends with Kate since the 9th grade, so this little disagreement wouldn't ruin our friendship. Second update. Kate and Bailey both agreed to be bridesmaids when I asked via message. Kate apologized via message, and she also sent me a video of her apologizing. Kate said she appreciates that I'm still letting her be a key part of the wedding. She said that after several days of thinking about the proposal, she realizes how loving it was. She said if she had IBS, she would appreciate a guy who treats her like how Peter treats me. Bailey apologized via message. Her apology was brief, and she admitted in it that Kate told her to apologize. Next story. Am I the a-hole for telling my daughter, "Yeah, I get it, you hate him," when she went on a father-daughter trip? So I, 42 female, have two daughters. Emma, 17 female, and Lucy, 10 female. The issue revolves around my husband, who is Emma's stepfather. Emma's dad passed away when she was younger, and I remarried 3 years ago. She and my husband don't get along at all, and she makes it clear she dislikes him. My husband has tried to bond with her, but Emma shuts him out completely, refuses to talk, and ignores him. We all know she will never see him as a father figure, and we are fine with it. Here's where it gets tricky. When Emma was younger, her bio dad would take her to father-daughter outings. We have a lot of pictures of those. Lucy was too young to remember any of them. We thought it would be nice to do it again, since Lucy does see her stepdad as her dad. Specifically, they would go to a pumpkin patch and then carve them. They went to the pumpkin patch yesterday and had a great time. Lucy and my husband really bonded and had a good time. The issue is Emma. She is mad that it took over the tradition with Lucy, that my husband stole the tradition, and I am disrespecting my late husband's memory. I was exhausted from hearing the same arguments over and over. So, I snapped and said, "Yeah, I get it. You hate him. But your sister sees him as her dad and doesn't have these memories like you do. Are you really going to ruin this for your sister? And no one owns going to a pumpkin patch." She has been angry and calling me an insensitive jerk. She is also getting on Lucy's case for going with my husband. My mom thinks I am a jerk here and I need an outside opinion. Edit. Before I get a million put her into therapy comments, we tried twice. She would just sit there. For months, even with different therapists, she would not talk. She just sat there. Not the a-hole. He didn't steal anything. Does Emma now believe that for forever now, anyone who goes on a father-daughter excursion can't? How narcissistic and self-centered. That is just plain silly. The only person here who is being disrespectful is Emma towards Lucy, trying to deny her the love and support from your husband. And that should not put up within no uncertain terms. Tell her to butt out. That's another issue. It is definitely hurting their relationship. Lucy sees him as her dad, and Emma hates it. Emma's going to end up pushing Lucy away from her. Or pushing Lucy away from the stepdad. Why not start a totally new tradition where all four of you go together? It did sound like you were trying to recreate something that was once owned by your daughter and their bio dad. Oh, that would be worse. Trying to make her have family time with a guy she hates. Not to mention, she would make a whole point about how he isn't family to her. That would be a no. So what are you trying to do to help with the adjustment for your daughter? Did she receive grief counseling when her dad died? What can you do to help someone who doesn't want help? OP mentions they tried therapy twice. If my spouse died and my child wasn't interested in therapy, I certainly would research other ways to try to help them. I would ensure her father's memory is still honored. May do something just with her daughter that her dad would have liked. OP comes across as a little dismissive of her daughter's feelings. I guess some people haven't heard of, you can't help someone that doesn't want to be helped. They already tried therapy. Twice. And she didn't cooperate. She doesn't have to treat her stepfather like a father figure, but that doesn't mean that he can't bond with his other stepdaughter just because she has trauma. You're not the a-hole here. It sounds like you've tried to be understanding of Emma's feelings, but at the end of the day, Lucy deserves to create her own memories too. It's not fair for Emma to gatekeep that tradition, especially since she's not open to accepting your husband as a father figure. You were just trying to find a balance between the two girls, and that's completely valid. Next story. Am I the a-hole for letting my daughter attend a Halloween party her stepsister is being excluded from? My ex-wife and I share 2 kids. Our daughter is 15 and our son is 13. We divorced 11 years ago, and we share custody of the kids 50-50. My ex is remarried and she has a stepdaughter in her home the same age as our daughter. My ex and her husband have tried to make the kids close, but especially the two girls because they're the same age. This has not worked. I know from my kids' time with me that they have zero closeness to her, and my daughter in particular doesn't like her stepsister. From speaking to my ex about issues in the past, I know her stepdaughter has trouble with other kids liking her, and she gets excluded by them more frequently than she's included by others. This was something my ex wanted me to address with our kids before. My daughter and her best friend were invited to a Halloween party. This year, the kids are with me for Halloween, so she asked me for permission to go. I spoke to the hosting parent, and I felt like it was safe for my daughter to go under the circumstances. My ex discovered I have given our daughter permission to go, and she was furious. She asked why I hadn't offered to take her stepdaughter to begin with, because she learned I was dropping the girls off and picking them up. Then she mentioned her stepdaughter was excluded from the party, and that every other kid in their grade is included. She felt that this meant our daughter should not be attending either, in support of her stepsister. She tried to forbid me from allowing our daughter to go. I told her it wasn't a decision she could make. She argued that I should be encouraging a supportive sibling dynamic between the girls, and that it seems like our kids only support each other and not their stepsister, who they've known for more than half their lives. My ex told me I'll be a real a-hole to a 15-year-old girl if I let our daughter go to this party. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. Your daughter is her own person. If she wants to go to a party, has your permission, and you are her guardian for that period, then you are in the right to allow her to go there. You aren't encouraging any bullying or discrimination of your ex's stepdaughter, and you certainly wouldn't be encouraging any supportive sibling dynamics between the girls by punishing your daughter by not allowing her to go. My only concern with the party was, would it be a safe space? It's not going to be the type of party where teens are drinking, etc. And there are enough adults present that I feel good about it. Adults I would trust. So yeah, I feel like that would be the only reason for me to say no. Although I am not a parent myself, I take it I would feel the same like you about the party. You did your homework, found that it is a safe environment for your kid to socialize and have fun, and you can sleep peacefully at night without worrying about something happening there. By the way, do you know why ex's stepdaughter is excluded from the party? That's always my concern with parties. A lot of teen parties making the local news in recent years for the worst of reasons. So I always try to make sure my kids are safe. Not exactly, but I believe it's all coming from her being excluded just in general at school. It sounds like she is regularly the kid left out. Not the a-hole. I can understand why your ex-wife is struggling with his situation. It's hard to raise children under the same roof who are having two very different social experiences at school. But punishing your daughter for that isn't going to magically make the situation better. It's just going to further the gap between the two of them. Encouraging a supportive dynamic between the girls goes both ways, but it can be as simple as your daughter acknowledging that this is likely tough for her stepsister and remaining kind to her in the home. My ex-wife doesn't see it as a punishment. She views it as something my daughter would do for her brother, which is true, so she should do it for her stepsister too. That was something she really emphasized to me while we spoke. She pointed out how protective she is and would be of her brother, and how she doesn't give a crap about her stepsister and how she's treated. This has been an issue for her for years. But she also won't answer if roles were reversed, if her stepdaughter would do it for hours. Deep down, she recognizes it's both girls who are disinterested, but she finds it easier to focus on ours. Last story. Am I the a-hole for telling my brother and sister-in-law there's nothing I can do about their Christmas card photos being unsendable? My brother and sister-in-law got their Christmas card photo taken about a month ago now. They used a friend of mine who does family photos. This has apparently encouraged them to expect a lot out of me, because now they have a problem and they don't know what to do. My brother and sister-in-law have been married for 3 years and have a 6-month-old together. Sister-in-law also has 2 older kids, 13 and 11, from her first marriage. She was a widow when my brother met her. They're not the nicely blended family they wanted to be, and her kids from the first marriage didn't want to be in the photos. There was a huge battle to take them, but the kids looked a mix of angry and disgusted in all of them. Like legit glaring and looking ready to puke, while my sister-in-law and brother are smiling and the baby looks peaceful. A couple of them even show how distant they want to be from my brother and the baby. It's like they're leaning away from them. Sister-in-law said the photos are unsendable, and there's no way she could let family and friends see them. But I'm not sure what I'm supposed to do here. They complained to me 3 times so far, and the last time they told me I need to do something and fix it. I asked them what they expected me to do, that I'm not the kid's favorite person or even a trusted adult in their eyes, and I can't magically erase their expressions. My friend was honest with them while the photos were being taken, but they didn't take it serious until they saw them. I told them after back and forth that there's nothing I can do about the photos being unsendable. Sister-in-law told me I'm not being very supportive. Am I the a-hole? Not the a-hole. What is there to support? Your brother and sister-in-law forced her 2 older kids to go and have family photos taken, and they weren't happy, and it showed. Your brother and sister-in-law need to get real and understand that forcing things like this will only drive the kids away the second they turn 18. 100%. I used to be a professional photographer. I quit because of people like OP's sister-in-law. There's nothing I can do if your kid won't cooperate. And no, you can't have a refund because your kids were brats and refused to smile. They should not have forced the older kids. Not the a-hole. Our blended family isn't, and the photos we had taken reveals that. They're focusing on the wrong thing here. The photos aren't the problem. The fact that the older kids likely resent their new half-sibling and are clearly unhappy with the current situation is the problem. If they want to paper over the cracks, tell them to deep fake some smiles onto the older kids. But really, they need to put some effort into actually tackling the root cause of the unsendable photos. The camera doesn't lie. They could also do a photo collage for their Christmas card. Smiling photos of each of the kids from that year that were not taken at the forced family photos. If they don't have any pictures of the kids looking happy from the last year, then the sister-in-law has bigger problems and needs to reevaluate her life choices and put her kids in therapy.